Welcome to Navigating Advocacy, the true crime podcast that goes beyond storytelling to ignite change and seek justice. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Whitney. As true crime enthusiasts turned passionate advocates, we've seen the power of storytelling raise awareness about unsolved crimes and bring hope to victims and their families. We hope to inspire action and promote positive change within the true crime community.
Our mission is simple. We provide a platform for victims and their families to share their stories, to be heard, and find solidarity. But we don't stop there. We offer practical guidance to our listeners on how they can actively make a difference in their own communities.
Together, we can create a wave of change. We're here to empower you to also become advocates for change, no matter where or who you are. We are Navigating Advocacy.
Salisbury is a city in the southeastern part of the U.S. state of Maryland. It is approximately 120 miles southeast of Baltimore and 120 miles east of Washington, D.C. There are roughly 32,000 residents. This area has a rich history influenced by Native American tribes, European settlers, and African American communities. The economy has always been about poultry farming and processing, but has diversified into other industries over the last decades. Overall, Salisbury offers a blend of history, culture, and natural beauty, making it an attractive place to live, work, and visit on Maryland's eastern shore. According to Neighborhood Scout, crime in this area is rated a 6 out of 100. The likelihood of becoming a victim of a violent crime is 3 times higher in this town versus the rest of Maryland. It always boggles my mind when we get towns like this. 32,000 people. Why is it so dangerous?
Because there's nothing else to do there.
Apparently. So just insane. And that is why we are navigating advocacy in Salisbury, Maryland this week with a double homicide of 2 people who were well-loved and community-oriented. Let's talk about the victims in today's unsolved case. We have Arlene Byrd and Antonio Smith. Arlene was described as an energetic, outspoken, outgoing, and the life of the party type of woman. She had a twin sister and another older sister. She was just 31 years old at the time of her murder. Then we have Antonio Smith, who loved ones described as an outgoing, a person with a fun-filled personality. He loved football and was said to be the unofficial mayor of Salisbury. We have all known that person in town who seems to know everyone and is friends with everyone. They know everything that's going on and is almost like a mascot, so to speak. And this was Antonio. He had a partner, a son, a stepdaughter, and 4 sisters. So lots of women in his life. On July 17th, 2010, Arlene and Antonio were at a local restaurant called Brew River for a party. I went over to this Brew River's website, and it looks like a nice family-owned seafood restaurant. It's right on the water, has like a nice deck. It does hold all sorts of events. That was what was prominent on their website. It was like, hey, host your, bachelorette party here, host your birthday parties, graduation, that type of thing. But it looks like a nice environment. Around 3 a.m. on the 18th, Antonio and Arlene left the party and headed to his apartment at the 500 block of Emery Court. These apartments were called the Parkside Apartments. From this point, I can only tell you what is believed to have happened. When they arrived at the apartments, they walk upstairs, and it is thought that someone was possibly waiting for them. This could be more than one person as well, considering 2 people were subdued pretty quickly. This person or people, by some means of force, were able to push them inside the apartment, where over the next 2 hours, they would be tortured before being killed. Later that day, Arlene's twin sister would try calling her repeatedly without any luck. This was unusual behavior for Arlene. She typically would always pick up her phone or call her family members right back. It wouldn't be a long period of time that she would go without speaking to them, especially her twin sister. So this twin sister took it upon herself to start driving around the town looking for her vehicle. But at the same time, she's calling friends and family, making sure, seeing if they've seen Arlene. And she eventually learns that Arlene left with Antonio that night, and she gets a hold of a friend that tells her where Antonio lives. She had never met Antonio before. She may have knew who he was, but she's never met him personally.
Arlene and Antonio were not dating, they were just friends. There was no already established relationship outside of friendship.
Yes, that is true, and the only part I only read in one report that Antonio had a partner, and that's how it's stated, and it it's very weird how they made it seem that Arlene ended up with Antonio that night. They said she followed him home, and so I don't know what that means. I mean, yes, she followed him, she took her own vehicle back to his apartment. I mean, did he know she was with him? And that's was always a little bit confusing to me because in every report, it's Arlene followed Antonio home. They walked up the apartment stairs and were attacked at that point.
Mhm. Okay.
So, sister finds out the apartments that Antonio lives in, and so she goes over there. She sees her sister's car in the parking lot. So she's like, okay, well, maybe her phone died, then I'll just give her some more time. She kind of tried to chill out, but was still a little bit concerned or anxious about the situation. So she leaves, a few hours pass and still no word from Arlene. So she's like, I'm done with this. I'm going to go over to these apartments. So she goes there, parks, walks up these same stairs, and she sees blood, even bloody footprints leading out of Antonio's apartment. She stated, when I looked down, I could see bloody footsteps coming out of the apartment onto the landing. You open the door, there's blood smeared on the back of the door. And there's a huge puddle of blood trickling down on the landing and then trickling down the stairs. So this is a significant amount of blood. So you think about it, apartment complexes, it's usually like concrete steps because these are outdoor apartments. You walk up the steps, you go onto a little bit of a landing, and then it's the apartment door right there. She's saying there's blood coming like out the door onto the landing, but then it's also dripping down the stairs.
Wow.
Can you just I would be beyond freaked out, beyond. This is horrific. She calls the police to do a welfare check because the door is locked. She's not able to get in. So they get to the apartment. They have to get a manager of the property to unlock this door. And when they get in the apartment, they find Arlene and Antonio are both deceased. What is known is that these two were killed inside that apartment between the hours of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. And based on their injuries, they were tortured before their death. The medical examiner would release that Arlene's cause of death was due to wounds inflicted by stabbing, while Antonio's cause of death was asphyxiation. It hasn't been released how they were tortured exactly, and that's to be expected. This is an ongoing investigation, so they obviously have to keep some things under wraps.
Right.
Now, about 6 hours after these murders were discovered, there was a drive-by shooting about a mile and a half away from Antonio's apartment. Three individuals who were driving a red Dodge Neon opened fired towards a house. A man by the name of Troy Williams Wilson, who is just 25 years old, would be killed in this drive-by shooting. The men in the Dodge Neon ended up crashing the vehicle, I think, by the end of the street and running away on foot from the scene. Police would eventually find these people and charge them with the murder of Troy. But at first, authorities were looking into the possibility of these murders all being connected. What's the likelihood? Three murders within a 1.5 mile radius, all on the same night. It could seem connected. Retaliation, if it's gang violence, there's just all of the possible scenarios are going through the police's heads at this point. Luckily, they were able to apprehend the three people that committed that murder, and it had nothing to do with Arlene's and Antonio's murder. Back to what we know about Arlene and Antonio. The police believe that Antonio was the target of this attack. Arlene just happened to be there and was honestly collateral damage, unfortunately. This was a planned, premeditated crime, Sergeant Lloyd, who was an investigator on the case, stated. He also said that these people had time. This wasn't something typical, or it was not rushed at all. The amount of blood found outside of the apartment was insane. There was a trail of blood coming from the apartment, out on the path, and down the stairs. The blood would have been visible to anybody who walked by. And remember, this blood would have been there from 5 o'clock in the morning all the way throughout the whole day. So no one left their apartment, came home from their apartment that lived on that same floor as Antonio. Seems a bit crazy because they would have
Right.
been able to see it. They did test the blood and it all belonged to Arlene and Antonio. So they weren't able to get any clues or DNA off of that. Arlene's sister would state that she had lived in these exact apartments at one time. She said the walls were paper thin. So, how could no one, not a soul, hear what was going on in that apartment? For 2 hours being tortured and they didn't scream, didn't have any type of noise come out of their mouths, seems insane. A brutal murder in an apartment complex cannot occur without a single person hearing or seeing anything. The question is, why are these people not talking? Arlene and Antonio were two people that the community loved. I believe Arlene was a hairdresser. I can't remember what Antonio did, but the mayor, the unofficial mayor of the city, they're obviously community oriented people.
He definitely seems like he was in favor of you don't call someone that if you hate them.
Exactly. Exactly. They were happy. The life of the party type of individuals. People need to come forward and share what they know. The time is now. Anyone with information about this murder is urged to contact the Maryland State Police at the Salisbury Barrack at 410-749-3101. Crime Solvers of the Lower Eastern Shore is offering a reward for anyone with information that leads to an arrest. Crime Solvers can be reached at 410-548-1776, and callers can remain anonymous. It has been too long, and there are people that know this is not a one person took it to their grave type of crime. This involved many people. It was planned. Everyone, I mean, whoever was involved knew what to do and that this was going down. And the fact that no one in the apartments is saying anything is also very weird. So that's what makes me
Yeah,
think maybe gang activity or something.
maybe because if they were laying there, standing there in wait, they were waiting for them to
Mhm.
get back. I mean, it was like you said, it was premeditated. It wasn't just they bumped into each other in the hallway. They were prepared to do something
Exactly.
that evening. So no one else saw people just hanging around outside that apartment, or
Yeah.
maybe I mean, it's something. No one saw anything weird, or like you said, heard anything. I
I
mean,
feel like they would hear something.
most apartment complexes have very thin walls.
Mm.
I lived in apartments when I was in college. There's no privacy to anything. You hear it all, whether it's just their
Exactly.
TV or they're doing extracurricular activities. You hear it all.
You know the time they wake up and you know the time they go to bed. That is how close how thin those walls are. And two people getting tortured for a few hours and no one heard. It's insane.
Yeah. Hmm. Someone's got to know something. Someone saw something.
Mhm. Yes. Agreed.
And there's
Agreed.
no
Hopefully.
cameras. This is 2010. There's no cameras anywhere. Not a single person had anything in the area.
Yeah. As far as I know, that is all the information that's been put out from police. I was actually shocked they released the cause of death because they a lot of times they don't. But yeah, apparently the bodies were beaten pretty significantly and cut up and stuff. And it's just I don't
Wow.
know.
Mm,
Yeah, that's
man.
quiet old Maryland. We want to share a few ways you can support us to continue our mission. You can become a Patreon subscriber, or a simple rate and review on your favorite podcast platform helps us get in front of someone who may know something.
We will continue traveling state by state seeking justice because we will be there no matter where,
No matter who.